All right, so this is a very short video about all the different styles that you could use to illustrate your pop art. I am going to start off by using oil pastels. You could also use crayon. They both blend in a similar way. Oil pastels are just a little bit creamier, but crayons definitely will work. And I will tell you guys that oil pastels are just a little bit messy. It's kind of like the way chalk pastels kind of get everywhere. Oil pastels are similar, but they blend in a way that is really a nice technique. It makes your work look really creamy. So you could try oil pastels or crayons. And this is me pretty much experimenting with different color schemes. You're gonna see that I, throughout this video, try different approaches to my illustration, and keeping in mind that this is just art and we are all just having a good time learning and playing with media. I don't want you guys to be super stressed out. I just want to show you the different styles that are available to you. So when you are using oil pastels, you notice how I'm holding the oil pastels kind of away from the palm of my hand. You don't want to smear your work. That's one of the things that can happen, and it will look not so good. So do be careful with oil pastels. I went ahead and colored the face gray, and as I'm finishing up, I am just going over some of my lines that I want to make sure stand out and are nice and dark. Moving on to the next media here, you're gonna see that I use many different type of media. You do not have to. You can pick one type of media. You could use colored pencils, the entire portrait, and that would be fine with me. But I wanna show you that you can use other types of art media. I'm gonna go ahead and put a piece of white paper under my palm so I don't smear my drawing, and then I'm gonna work with markers. These happen to be a type of, almost like a Copic marker, but a Crayola marker would work just as well. And I'm going through my design using colors that are inspired by pop art illustrations. So I'm trying to think about colors that definitely Mario is not usually going to be seen in. So I'm just going through each little section and trying to make different lines, different patterns. I'm really pushing myself to think outside the box. You guys, it wasn't easy for me to make these diagonal lines through Mario's face, but once it was all said and done, I was really excited about it. You'll notice that I used lines that are closer together to make areas look darker, and lines that were further away from each other to make it look lighter. I did go ahead and try to use some of those Ben-Day dots, and it worked really well with markers. It does not work well with oil pastels, so do not try to use Ben-Day dots with oil pastels. It just doesn't look quite right. I went ahead and outlined everything in black. I find that looks really good in this pop art. For this next media exploration, I used watercolor. And what you see me doing now is using a white crayon to outline some of the areas that I want to keep separate from the others. I'm using my watercolor palette and a lot of water, because my plan here is to sort of blend all sorts of colors all over Mario's face. And then once it's done, I will go back in and outline with black. And when I look at my drawing now, this happens to be one of my favorite corners of my work. I really enjoy the way the colors blended together, and I thought that it had a great feel to the whole project. I'm using a lot of water, you guys, with these watercolors. That is the way that I get the paint to bleed together, to sort of smear and roll into different areas. You've got to use a lot of water, okay? We'll come back to that and outline that later. The last media that I wanted to show you guys was colored pencils, and you can use colored pencils in similar way that you would use crayon or paint in that you can make certain areas darker by adding more pigment, keeping areas lighter by having a lighter hand. So you can see that I'm going around and adding some shadow in spaces that normally would have shadow underneath the hat, around the inside of the ears, at the base of the hat. That's just me going in and pressing harder and adding more color from my color pencil in those areas. I like the color pencil. I like blending with it. I thought it was really fun and it gave it a really nice texture. I also like that each one of my squares has a different approach. Like I said before, you may not want to do that, and that's totally okay. This part of this project is in your hands. We are going to spend several art periods doing this. I would say that as a goal, you would want to illustrate probably at least one square per art class, if not two. But you do not need to illustrate them all in one art class. I am just paying attention to what I'm going to do with the background. I chose to have watercolor throughout all of my squares. I'm using a different color for each quadrant. And you guys will have a lot of freedom with this. I hope that this video has given you a little sneak peek as to all the different media available that you have to use. I know that some of you will have different things and they will not be the same as mine. That's okay. That's fine. I have given you guys several different types of art media that you can use, and if you want to use your own stuff or something different, go right ahead. I'm just finishing up this last watercolor quadrant with a black outline, and then I will be done. So I will see you guys in class. Recall this video if you want, as much as you want to. This is a great resource for you to take a look at and think about how you will illustrate your pop art.